ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airways of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code ESPN25 at checkout to get 10% off your next order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Jam-packed show coming your way today. Damian Woody, NFL analyst extraordinaire for ESPN, will be on 30 minutes past hour number 1 right here. Start off hour number 2, middleweight champion of the world, Jermell Charlo. He will be on the show with yours truly. He's got a middleweight championship bout this coming Saturday. And then, of course, the president of the UFC, the one and only Dana White, will be on the line with yours truly at 30 minutes past hour number 2 back here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Want to get into a couple of things because the Dallas Cowboys, they do have a game coming up tonight, Thursday Night Football in Chi-Town, Chicago, Illinois, where the 6-6 Dallas Cowboys take on the 6-6 Chicago Bears. Obviously, Dallas Cowboys are atop the NFC East because it's deplorable. The Philadelphia Eagles can't stay healthy, can't catch passes, can't seem to call plays, certainly can't defend anybody in their secondary. So they've got some issues. But on the flip side of it is, because the Dallas Cowboys are in that division, there's still no excuse for them being 6-6 and struggling the way that they have. The Dallas Cowboys forgot that Ezekiel Elliott is guaranteed $50 million in the midst of a $90 million contract, that Dak Prescott is looking for a new deal, that Amari Cooper is looking for a new deal. Their defense, with guys like Jalen Smith getting paid, Leighton Vander Esch been injured, Sean Lee still in the lineup, but somehow, some way, even though they're going to be without 3 starters, they're still the better team, more talent. There's simply no excuse for the Dallas Cowboys being 6-6. I still think that there is a possibility that Jason Garrett may be fired before this season is out. I think he loses tonight. Jerry Jones has to reconsider his position because, again, Jerry Jones is 77 years old. My Libra brother, birthday October 13th, the day before mine. He's 77. The clock's ticking. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. And it's a situation where, simply put, Jerry Jones is an individual that needs to recognize the fact that tomorrow time is running out. And you got to take advantage. Not to say that he ain't going to live till 90 or 100 years old or whatever, but he himself will tell you that, guess what? It's one of those situations where tomorrow's not promised. You can't take for granted that it is, and you have to handle your business the way you see fit. It is what it is. There's no way around it. And if Jason Garrett can't get these boys to play tonight in Chi-Town against Mitchell Trubisky and the Chicago Bears, well, that might be all you need to know. In order to make a move, pull the trigger, and move in a different direction. It's just that simple. But that is definitely something that we will talk about as the show progresses right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Lots of other stuff to get into. But here's the bottom line. A gentleman by the name of Tim Ryan. He is a radio analyst for the San Francisco 49ers. He has been suspended for 1 game because of insensitive remarks he made about Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson during a radio interview. According to numerous reports, and I'm trying to make sure I call it up here, and I have it, Tim Ryan claimed during the interview that Jackson's dark skin helps him disguise the football when running offensive plays. Quote, he's really good at that fake, Lamar Jackson, but when you consider his dark skin color with a dark football, with a dark uniform, you cannot see that thing, Ryan said on the air. Ryan later apologized for the comments, but the team still said he will be off the broadcast this week. The 49ers also apologized to the Baltimore Ravens. Tim Ryan made the remarks on the Murph and Mac show on the 49ers home station, KNBR Radio, in San Francisco Wednesday morning. He was detailing Jackson's success running the ball against San Francisco on Sunday. Ryan, for those of you who may not remember, was a 2-time All-American at USC in Los Angeles, played 4 seasons in the National Football League with the Chicago Bears. He was a TV analyst on Fox for 11 years and has spent the past 6 seasons calling 49ers games on the radio. He was also co-host of Moving the Chains on SiriusXM's NFL Radio. Let me say this. before anybody gets out of their skin, let me be the first to say this. Tim Ryan does not deserve to be fired for this. And anybody with any core decency should not be wishing that he get fired. That he gets fired. He should not be fired for this. Okay? However, the suspension is appropriate. Let's understand something. And I'm going to explain this to my producer who was kind of debating this with me. Making good points, no doubt. Here's the problem. We live in elevated, sensitive times. When you consider from an historical perspective the plight of the black quarterback, how their intellect was questioned, their ability to throw the football, read defenses, go through their progressions and things of that nature, the Warren Moons, the Donovan McNabbs, the Randall Cunninghams, the list goes on and on. Dante Culpepper's, others, Steve McNair, the late, great Steve McNair, and others. When we see what they've done, long before this era of quarterbacks came into the equations, the Russell Wilsons, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes, the Dak Prescotts of the world and others, the Cam Newtons of the world, others. The plight of the black quarterback has been well documented. And so when you dissect and take into account Tim Ryan's assertions, maybe Tim Ryan didn't even realize this, but basically what you were doing was making an excuse for the level of greatness that Lamar Jackson was putting on display on a week-to-week basis. You're talking about the success he had running the football. I'm sorry, you bring up dark uniforms. What about when he's wore light uniforms? I still saw him running the football. 977 yards rushing the football this year was not all accumulated against the San Francisco 49ers. Nor was it accumulated in his dark uniform. Secondly, I don't recall the football resembling complexion-wise that of Lamar Jackson. Thirdly, I've seen plenty of quarterbacks who were just as dark as him running the football. Nobody said that about them. I've seen running backs darker than Lamar Jackson, for crying out loud, who didn't run the football nearly as effectively as he did. So there's no excuse to make the statement that Tim Ryan made. It was ignorant. It was devoid of sensitivity or knowledge of sensitivity. It was highly insensitive. It was definitely inappropriate. And when you consider the fact that this is a guy that played in the NFL for 4 years. This is a guy who was an All-American at USC. This is a guy that's been in the booth for 11 years. You know better. You should have known better. And so, in that regard, without trying to legislate what's in his heart, without trying to decipher what exactly is in his heart because you don't know, at the very least, it's fair to say he should have been smarter than that. He should have been smarter than that. But more importantly than that, because of the times that we're living in, if you want to send the message of dissuasive measures, basically inciting and provoking someone to refrain from even thinking about making remarks along those lines. If you want to do something like that, it's incredibly, incredibly appropriate that you suspend them. Because what you want to do more than anything else is make sure you highlight what's wrong with saying such a thing. And you want to go from there. That's what you want to do. And not suspending Tim Ryan would not send that message. Not showing folks that there are ramifications for such actions, that sends that message. That's what you have to understand. That's what you have to pay attention to. That's what you have to look at and dissect when you're thinking about such a thing. the reality, in the end, that's inescapable and undeniable, was that Tim Ryan is too experienced to not know better. 49ers did the right thing suspending him for a game. We're doing the right thing by talking about the sensitive times that we're living in, how it was wrong for him to do that, but we need to stop short of calling for the man's job. Because although it was insensitive and it was a bit ignorant, what is undeniable is that we don't know what was in his heart when he articulated and elocuted such thoughts. And with that being the backdrop and with that being a reality, he simply made a mistake. Now, there are those that will sit up there and they'd be like, hell with all that. What I would remind folks is that white folks ain't the only people that say stupid or ignorant things over the airwaves sometimes. Black people can be guilty of that. Do we not want compassion when that happens? Do we not want understanding when that happens? Do we not want the ability to articulate and disseminate a mea culpa in a fashion that would make folks say, okay, let's move on, just don't do it again? Do we not want that opportunity? You can't expect that opportunity when you're not willing to grant that to other people yourself. So I would sit up there and I would say to Tim Ryan, I don't know what's in your heart. Don't know what's in your background. This one statement I thought was relatively ignorant and very insensitive. But that doesn't mean that was your intent. A one-game suspension is appropriate. With confiscation of one game's check. Outside of that, we move on. And basically ask him to make sure he doesn't make that same mistake again. I don't think that's wrong, John. I don't think that's excessive. I think that's more than fair. And I think we've got to get back to the business of being fair. There are so many people out in the world today, they're so miserable. They're so truculent because of it. Because their life ain't going the way that they'd like it to. Their definition of success and happiness is somebody descending to their level of misery, as opposed to you elevating yourself to a level of happiness that you aspire to accomplish and enjoy. That's not happiness. It's not happiness because somebody else is miserable. It's not happiness because somebody else is unemployed. It's not a happiness because somebody else is suffering and their life is as little or as minimally productive as yours. That's not success. Success is elevating and rising and ascending, not regressing and dissipating. And I think we need to make sure to remind everybody of that. And I use this as an opportunity to pounce on Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan was wrong. I think he was insensitive. I think the comments were ignorant, plain and simple. But that doesn't mean we get to define what's in his heart without any further knowledge about who he is and what he stands for. And Dr. Harry Edwards was on the show today with the Black Eagle himself. Black Eagle himself, Joe Madison. For those of you who don't know Joe Madison is a radio host extraordinaire, a Hall of Fame radio host, by the way, who has his own show on SiriusXM every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. SiriusXM Urban View Radio, Channel 126, every weekday from 6 to 10 a.m. Listen to him every chance you get. He's great. Listen to Karen Hunter in the afternoon from 3 to 6. She's phenomenal. I'm biased when it comes to her. I just love Joe Madison and respect him profoundly. But Karen is my sister. We go back nearly 30 years. That's my girl. She's a marvelous radio host, too. Making me very, very proud, by the way. But I digress. The Black Eagle, Joe Madison, had the great Dr. Harry Edwards, my big brother, a phenomenal man, a professor emeritus, at Cal Berkeley, if I remember correctly. Obviously a historian, black activist. I mean, he's done it all. You got an issue pertaining to African Americans in the United States of America. You have an issue about American history, and you want a different perspective. You call Dr. Harry Edwards. It's automatic. You know? He speaks, I listen. When I ask a question, it's to learn. It ain't to debate, because the man's too brilliant to even try. But he said something about Tim Ryan today on Joe Madison's show. He said, quote, Tim Ryan is a good guy. He goes on to say, we're going to have to pick up the pieces based off of what he said. We have to call them on it. But at the same time, we cannot dismiss them because all of us have a lot to learn. I think that's an incredibly fair statement. What did you say, John? Now, again, he knows Tim Ryan a little bit. Tim Ryan may have meant no harm. We don't know definitively that he did. And if he meant no harm and he simply made a mistake, then let's leave it at that. Man's getting suspended for one game. Probably going to be denied one game's check. Okay. I think, again, it was insensitive, it was ignorant. But it doesn't mean there was malice attached to it. Could have been, but we don't know. And if we don't know, what is it in his history that says he doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt? Unless we can find out what that is. I think it's incumbent upon us as human beings to be fair to the man. And I ain't going to lie to you. I know Richard Sherman hasn't spoken on this issue. Richard Sherman, he and I might go back and forth this year about, what I once felt about the 49ers compared to what I feel right now, because I think they go to the Super Bowl. But I got to tell you something. I love Richard Sherman. I'm proud of that brother. And I think he's a brilliant young man. And the only reason I'm interested in hearing what he has to say about it is because of A, his brilliance, and B, the fact that he's a member of the 49ers. I would be interested in hearing what he had to say. But I think short of people who actually know Tim Ryan, if you don't know anything about his history, and there's nothing in his background that you can find that where there's something more salacious or incendiary as it pertains to his feelings and emotions about race, about black people or whatever, leave him alone. He made a mistake. Cut the man some slack. A suspension is more than enough. Those are my feelings about it. What about yours? 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Again, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I don't know what the hell would make those comments come out of his mouth. I think it was a manner that could easily come across where one could surmise or assume that he was trying to minimize the greatness of Lamar Jackson by alluding to his skin and the ability to hide the football as somehow, some way having a profound effect on the productivity he's been putting forth. One could easily interpret it as that, but we don't know. And if we don't know, I think compassion calls for the order of the day. We don't need people losing their jobs just like that over something like this. That ain't fair. And if nothing else, I strive to be fair. I truly, truly do. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We'll get back to your calls or to your calls in a minute. Plus, we'll definitely get my man Damian Woody on the line to talk about this and various football matters, particularly the Cowboys versus the Chicago Bears tonight. And remember, hour number 2, Jamel Charlo, the middleweight champion of the world, is going to be on the show with us live in studio. And Dana White is going to be calling in about 30 minutes past hour number 2 to promote this upcoming UFC event. We all know, listen, Dana White is welcome on this show any day of the week. That's my man. So he's always welcome on this show. He wanted to come on today. That's all that needed to be said. By the way, just to give some love, Family Ties. That's the name of the new album that debuts tonight at midnight by my man Fat Joe. Y'all better check it out. Fat Joe's coming out with a new album tonight, Family Ties. You understand? You know who Fat Joe is. You know what he brings to the table. Lean back. Lean back. Lean back. You know what time it is. Congrats to my man right there. Just saw him a few minutes ago. Special dude. Special artist. Make sure you support him. He's tight with DJ Khaled, too. For some reason, I love DJ Khaled. I just can't get enough of the guy. Great DJ. Great for the music industry, but I just love his spirit. DJ Khaled is a special dude. You know? Get him. Just us. It's just us against the world. Let me not regress. 888-SAY-ESPN. Don't touch that dial. Stick around. This is more of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio coming your way in a minute. By the way, did you know the arrow on Amazon's logo represents A to Z? Maybe the My Computer Career logo should represent unemployed to employed. Ryan was out of work when he started classes in March. In September, he started his IT career working for Amazon.